while, but again, not because of his micro or his aggression, I think. It was because of his choices and his catch-all, good at everything. But anyway, moving on. It's true, I did like Innovation more than Maru all his career, so that's that also meant that I missed out on some Maru fangirlism. But there's something, sometimes I like nothing but aggressive players. And sometimes I really like watching nothing but the most mechanically perfect players. And to me, Innovation was a robot who was mechanically perfect. Maru was not a robot, just kind of a little shy kid, I guess. And his mechanics were obviously fantastic. But to me, I always think of a Innovation 8-racks, not a Maru 8-racks. Anyway. Top left, we got MaxPax. Bottom right, we got Byun. So a whole different sets of Terrans and Protoss for the second semifinal. Whoever wins this will be facing Clem. I did predict another Clem MaxPax finals, and I'm still going to predict that, actually. Because these two play against each other on the North American server rather frequently. They are very often the finalists of the North American Cup, if Clem doesn't play, or if he gets beat by someone or whatever. So I think MaxPax has an advantage, but I am going to double check that. MaxPax, Byun.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing
Paul Wilson, TV. Thank you very much for the 9 months. It's a baby. Well, this probe's doing its best at being a dickhead. MaxPax absolutely wins more. I think I did look at that last time that I cast them in a North American Open Cup, and I forgot. But yeah, I know 100% MaxPax way better than Byun as of the last year. Their overall score is actually very similar, but this is including times where MaxPax wasn't at the top of his game. So technically, MaxPax has to win one more game to be totally even in games. But he's already won out on the matches against Byun. But that, again, is the entirety of their careers. You look at the last year, and MaxPax is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 12. He's 12-1 against Byun in 2024. So, now that we got that done, let's focus more on apparently a Zealot that came across the map. Now, this Zealot doesn't have a lot of promise when it comes to killing any units, but it is supposed to take up time and distract for this Adept to do a little bit more. So far, so good for Byun's defense. We'll actually finish the bunker. His SCV will not finish the command center, though. That was just shy of a 2-shot, I swear to God. I actually thought that SCV was still 2-shot because it was in the orange, but nope. The Reaper goes down 2 to the second Adept, which is very unideal because Byun was basically like, okay, I dealt with the harassment. I finally got all my buildings up. Let's go and get some scouting. And then he just stopped short, so... The Zealot didn't look impressive. The second Adept didn't look that impressive, but you really combine all these things together and you can see how frustrating this is for the Terran. And MaxPax overstaying his welcome a little bit. Should have shitted out prior to a Cyclone. Timing. As far as, you know, when it can pop out off a 1-1-1. MaxPax probably knows that timing. I'm going to be real with you guys. Like, I wouldn't in the game be like, oh, it's 3:45. I got to worry about a Cyclone popping out. But then there's also, you know, is he distracted? Is he fixing his macro back at home? Banshee is on the way. Okay, so MaxPax, one thing he has not gotten is a full scout into the main. So he knows a Cyclone popped out. It's at least a 1-1. Probably a 1-1-1. But technically could be a 2-1-1. Anyway, whether you believe a Banshee's on the way or not is different, because usually it's going to be a medevac, maybe a Liberator. A Viking if you're going Stargate, but clearly MaxPax isn't going Stargate. He is going for 3 gates, which is his new bread and butter. He used to be nothing but 4 gates, and even at their worst, when people were literally just blind countering almost 4 gates, they still probably had like a 50% success record against most Terrans. Not Clem, and that's, I think, one of the reasons he started to change it, but still, it was pretty good. But 3 gates gives him that same possibility of the aggression, the same use of his micro and reading the situation to get maximum damage, but without such a heavy commitment. Because he also still is one of the few Protoss players who always gets a Warp Prism with his 3-gate. You know, 3-gate can be a purely defensive thing. You're scared of the Terran doing an early push. Not with MaxPax. Stalker aggression or die trying. And he's got Blink Micro and Warp Prism Micro, with the Warp Prism nice and safe, not locked on. Just going to take whatever SCV damage he can get, which is 6 SCVs at the cost of 0 Stalkers. Zilch. The only thing that can protect him, beyond that is, from any further damage are, in fact, tanks. But, oh, there we go. Banshee makes an appearance. It's talking about how this could be a surprise. And I even lost track of it. Unfortunately, it will not quite do equivalent damage. And it's better than absolutely nothing, but it is not equivalent damage, plus it is the dedication of the Banshee, which is kind of expensive. It doesn't have any place the farther the game goes. Just imagine this could have been either faster barracks, I want to say. Obviously, you can use the tech lab and reactor hop-ons with it, too. Or at the very least, again, it could have been a Liberator that maybe is still hiding somewhere, or a Raven that, you know, is always useful, basically. So, all in all, I like this position for MaxPax. It would be even better if he didn't lose 5 probes, but it's pretty good, I think. Byun is also making quite a few tanks. Some of you may know that I'm not a super big fan of tanks in this matchup. You usually have either a tank push. Whoops. This is the observer. In which case, make as many tanks as you see fit. If you're going to do a tank push, do a tank push. But if you're going to be building tanks to kind of get into a mid-game, they fall off pretty hard because Zealots make an appearance. Particularly if it's like an aggressive map control type of Protoss too. Having your tanks actually help in a battle seems unlikely. I'm willing to admit a bias against it, but yeah, the more tanks I see, the more that I either think A, Byun will be surrounded and killed, or B, he's going to play super, super defensive. Which Byun has done in the past. He's looked a little uncomfortable versus other Protosses. And usually when a Terran's uncomfortable, they just stay at home. And, that's fine. It's an okay way to play, but it's arguably not the best Terran way to play, and I would say it is clear that it is not a Byun way to play. Byun needs to have that control and the micro and the aggression, and tanks are also not super great at that. They're, you know, they're the one push or the one punch man. They're not a drop. So anyway. We'll see which one this comes down to, right? Because Byun could get his tanks, never push with them, only leave them at home, and hope that they help defend against little run-bys. But again, not very good against Zealots, which are usually what's running by. Or maybe he actually gets across the map, sieges them right here, and MaxPax makes a huge mistake by not tracking it. Tanks are oftentimes one of the more dependable things. If you are facing someone with Colossus, you don't get to that many Vikings that quickly. So that's also reason to have some tanks. But actually in this game, it's not Colossus. Byun just scanned the natural and he saw that lacking 4th gas, which is just what people are doing now. That could still be Colossus. And so he doesn't actually know that it's High Templar. Now the High Templar, you know, they might have trouble getting into range of the tanks or surviving if they get in range of the tanks, because if they drop out from the Warp Prism, you know, boom, they're in the tank range. But they can get the Storm before they die, is the problem. And the second problem, or maybe the first, reverse the order, whatever, is that High Templars are often accompanied by a lot of Zealots, which, again, these tanks aren't looking super great against. But EMPs will be available. Byun is safe. This is one thing that has been for certain, as much as I'm criticizing the attack potential here. He certainly has been safe. MaxPax not finding any opportunities to get in there for harassment or damage because Byun's been at home this entire time. But if that's what you're reading as the Protoss player and you're like, oh, the Terran's playing this type of style, then, you know, more expansions, getting up the technology, taking the map control, setting up run-by, setting up vision. You know, you just have to acknowledge that's what's happening. If MaxPax was stubbornly trying to get an engagement going over and over and over again, then that would be a different story. But this is this looked okay for Byun to begin with because this, like, clearly MaxPax did not expect that army to be there. But then again, Byun also ran face first into the Zealots, even though they did get EMP'd, it still wasn't the ideal situation. And the Storms were just waiting. So now it's like, did you just use all the EMPs on the Zealots? Yes, you did. Tanks actually are going to be very helpful right now. Oh, and a Widow Mine pops off on the War Prism too. Okay. He holds on. That War Prism could be alive without that Widow Mine. If there were a couple more Zealots, the Stalkers would not have been the focus of the tanks unless they were focus fired, of course. And that might have still been a little more damage to Byun's side, but Byun holds for now. Problem is that MaxPax does have 5 bases, is going to be able to remax very quickly on this composition. We'll come back with an additional upgrade. Actually, already had an upgrade lead. Jeez, I didn't even realize I had +2 attack. So he's going to have 2-1 versus 1. And, well, I was going to say, maybe the EMPs can still take care of this army. If Byun can still afford to produce enough ghosts, then that is still a very good counter to the entirety of MaxPax's army. Templars get EMP'd, they're useless. Archons get EMP'd, they're useless. Zealots get EMP'd, they're less useful. And that, again, is going to save him. He's going to go into a 4th base as he continues to basically just turtle. I know he was kind of moving out, so it looked like maybe he was going to make some moves, but no, he's continuing to have to play defensive. MaxPax comes in again with the... I guess he's looking at the superior upgrades as to why he was so confident there. But honestly, this is not that big of a Protoss army. It might have superior upgrades, but this is still a very microable Terran army. And I don't know if this... I guess it doesn't really matter. MaxPax is basically making sure to trade out efficiently enough every single time. It was also a distraction as the War Prism came in and dropped some Zealots into the main base. He also knew his Colossus was going to bring up the rear, so as long as any unit survived on the front, he was going to have more support soon. And, yeah. This is still MaxPax's game. 4th base goes down. 32 SCVs have fallen. MaxPax taking absolutely 0 damage back at home. And that is MaxPax with a Game 1 victory. If I still lived on the East Coast, I'd probably do the same thing, but I do not. So, I mean, I could definitely use miles and get there for relatively cheap, but I don't know. In the bottom right of Site Delta, up 1, he is Psystorm's MaxPax. And in the top left, it is Shopify Rebellion's Byun. I think we all wish that there was a real big StarCraft tournament happening in Atlanta, but they really... It is unfortunate, too, because if Atlanta was happening in December again, like last year, I think there actually is a pretty good chance that that StarCraft 2 EPT circuit would have been there. But with absolutely 0 plans even being hypothesized before EWC was finished, there's just no way they could have... Even if they're about to, like, you know, announce, like, 10 StarCraft 2 tournaments and a bunch more money and everything's amazing... You would not have enough time to plan that for Atlanta, so that's kind of a bummer. Anyway. Hopefully we do get some announcements about the ESL Pro Tour soon. I have this really bad feeling that I'm going to plan something, and as soon as I actually pull the trigger and buy the tickets and, you know, they're non-refundable and whatnot, that's when ESL is going to announce something right smack dab in the middle of my plans. Because this is what happens. This is like what pro gamers have had to deal with for so long, particularly, I think. Sometimes we get a little more advance notice, or... Yeah, I guess that's kind of it. And then, like, poor players will be like, I'm going to go on my 1 vacation this year. Oh, Dallas is suddenly a tournament? Cool. So MaxPax, he played his game last game, didn't he? I think that actually overall could be summed up as one Protoss player playing his preferred game, and one Terran player playing a game that he would never like in a million years. It's not that Byun hasn't been forced to try, attempt, practice, perfect turtle styles, because he has had to do that. You know, I still recall when the Ravens had Seeker missiles, and he was absolutely one of the best Terrans at playing turtle. And he looked actually like he was having fun in that meta, believe it or not, despite having to be entirely on the defense. But Secret Missiles also went boom in a bigger way, so that was kind of fun. But that was a long time ago. And overall, I would say it's still not what we expect or want from Byun. I don't think it's the way that he, in a perfect world, would always play. And so, you know, especially when it's not the ideal meta, when there's not some just, like, win point when you get enough Ravens with Secret Missile that you just win most games, playing Turtle, defense, slow, non-aggressive, it just doesn't sound very fun. And that's one thing I always gave to Spirit, even before he kind of ascended the multiple levels that he has, is I always applauded his freaking patience. Because, I don't know. I actually play mech and I do Turtle, so maybe I'm being a little hypocritical, but it's not the most fun thing you can do, I guess. Spirit always did it. He was always good at it. Byun has done it. He was good at it when he did it, but he's not only doing something that he doesn't always want to do, he's also doing it against one of the best Protosses in the world. Untested when it comes to offline tournaments, but thoroughly tested when it comes to online. And in the repeated tests that Byun has had against MaxPax, he has failed almost every single one in the last month or two. So, trying to, you know, go back to the drawing board and figure out something that would surprise your opponent is the ideal situation, and seems to be what Byun's doing here. So he is going into a fast 3cc with very limited protection in the early game without that factory. But if you get away with this is 3cc, 2 racks with a fast engineering bay, 3rd rack only just being built. It is insanely greedy, but if you get away with it, which it looks like Byun 100% will be getting away with it, you should have a very powerful attack from the get-go. A very intimidating army with your first push out, followed by an even faster and bigger second push or drop. The one thing you do not have is a very fast starport, so I guess I said a drop, but that's also kind of in question with this style of play. You will eventually have enough medevacs, but early on, that's one thing you're missing, is medevacs and or Vikings. So MaxPax, you know, he's been trying to figure out what the hell exactly this build is, and he's not being able to truly tell, but he's seen no factory units, no starport units, and very few units as well. Which might mean that he's figured out that's a 3cc. He would try and do this regardless of what his opponent was building. Doesn't work this time, though. MaxPax with another 3-gate, to be clear. Warp Prism harassing once again. Doesn't break the bunker. Loses a Stalker while he's at it. We'll go for round number 2. But I mean, as long as he doesn't lose any more Stalkers, it is all totally fine, right? I am worried about that first push and MaxPax's ability to deal with it. Again, I think at some point prior to even this scout, I think MaxPax has been putting together the puzzle. He knows he's up against a greedy build, a non-factory starport build, and that's, you know, if it was an actual 2-base 3 racks, it would have already tried to hit him. So, yeah, you can really figure things out. Oh, loses a couple more Stalkers there. That's what you don't want to do. So MaxPax knows that eventually medevacs will arrive, and when those medevacs are there, that's when the push will happen. His goal is to buy time. Like, if he shaves off Marines with Stalker Micro, that's cool, but also very dangerous. I think in general, his goal is to buy time. He has gone into a typical 3-gate and 3 Nexus. Forge, Charge, probably meant to be on the way, I would really imagine. Now I'm really worried he's forgotten Charge. Well, I think this might just be him focusing a little too much on the micro, which, you know what, let's take a look at the resources lost and see what he's actually gotten here. Overall, still at a deficit, I would say, because gas is more of a commodity, but yeah. It's only Marines really going down so far, no Marauders. Still no Charge. Oh, okay, he finally started Charge. I think that was very late, though. He had plenty of gas and minerals for a long time, and that is gut-wrenching, actually, because Charge is not that expensive at 100, and it's kind of fast. So you can kind of forgive yourself for a 5, 10, 15, 20-second delay on Charge, but that was even more than that, I think. Warp Prism still being a distraction, meaning that Byun can't send the full might of his army across the map ASAP, and that is one really, really important thing here. MaxPax needs to make sure to keep that alive. It might never do a damn thing in this game, But as long as it's alive and holding that army back at home, MaxPax apparently did not need charge for the first push, because again, that was not the entirety of the army. Byun still has a lot of advantages. His economy is still better than MaxPax's, actually, because of the mules being dropped. You can see the numbers here. And his upgrades are far superior at 1-1 versus just 1. He should be able to, again, run most of his army forward. Okay, the War Prism was recalled. He should be able to run most of his army forward now, and he still has a lot of army. But it really isn't as dramatic as I was afraid it would be. Charge is clearly done, too, so that didn't end up mattering. It's actually totally fine. It looks like MaxPax's insistence on harassing, despite losing him a good number of units, might have been worth it overall. For, again, the... what's the word I'm looking for? For all the damage that isn't reflected in numbers. Whether it's distractions, having the Terran mess up their build order, having them not as confident moving out because stalkers are on their ass the entire time. Like, whatever it is, that indirect damage, there we go, might have been very worth what MaxPax has been doing here. And some of the direct damage. Again, he has managed to kill a couple of SCVs, 14 at this point. A couple of Marauders finally went down, and a chunk of Marines. And Zealots just coming in every which way. Every time Byun thinks that he's dealt with a War Prism and that he can finally move out, and then he has to go chasing the Stalker army that doesn't really want to combat totally and entirely. And then there's Zealots on the left or the right side distracting him. And then MaxPax during this time is probably getting to a perfectly fine army. So I know how many times you guys have played TVP, but you're like, okay, I got a good army. Look at all these Marauders. Look at all these Medivacs. Let's go. Oh, I got distracted. Oh, I got distracted. Oh, okay, I'm probably just... The guy probably has like 15 Colossus and 20 High Templars, and I'm just dead anyways. Might be going through Byun's head. Of course, MaxPax's not nearly that far ahead, and I would really say he's not necessarily ahead, but he's kind of controlled this like a puppet master. So while Byun has never been behind, it just never seems like a Byun doing what he really wants to do. This might be a best opportunity. There we go. Okay, this is a dead army right there. Protoss not prepared to deal with the full might of the Terran army coming in with a concave either. But other things are happening, and that's the real kick in the nuts right now. That is the real kick in the nuts. Fortunately, Vikings will stop that further warp in, but because the Zealots came into the third, the natural, and possibly into the main base, Byun was forced to retreat. He did not chase down the last Colossus or the last remnants of the units. It did not all go to shit for the Protoss. It was half a shit. The Zealots really helping out there. As far as their actual cost efficiency, I don't think they were very cost efficient. That was a lot of Zealots that only managed to kill 9 SCVs and maybe some reinforcements, I'm not sure. But in terms of what they bought, definitely worth it. They, again, saved some of the army that was being pounced on. They pulled the army of the Terran back home entirely. And they have given MaxPax time to breathe and remax. 5 bases for MaxPax as he grabs 2-1, working on 3-1 at this point. 2-2 is going to finish for Byun very soon, though, so he will have an upgrade lead for this upcoming attack. His planetary isn't quite ready, and he just got slightly out of position, or did he? He's going to try and make at least somewhat of a surround opportunity. Vikings also covering that little ledge over there. It's one of their better positions. Frankly, though, they are willing to sacrifice themselves to actually kill some of these Colossus. Third Colossus died, but fourth Colossus comes in, also dies. We're back down to 2. And these ones are also gone as long time that Immortal. Both things that are really very necessary, honestly. The Immortal barely saved. 1 Colossus still alive, and that enough, alongside static defense, of course, will be enough to stop Byun from just fully committing to the attack. Once again, also not committing with his entire army. So much of his army was back at home, prepared for the Zealot run-bys. This case, though, it was DT run-bys, causing him to scan. Fortunately, he did actually have 3 scans available, so the DTs do not get totally out of control. But look how much army is back here dealing with... That time, that was only 3 DTs. Oh, okay, a 4th one comes in. That was only 4 DTs. And while that is kind of still expensive, that did, again, cost 4 scans. That did keep how much supply back at home? I mean, look how many Marauders are back at home doing nothing. Medivacs, too. MaxPax, if he had ever been forced to really take an engagement, much like he did right here, he would lose. Almost guaranteed. But he keeps on holding on to enough army and forcing Byun to pull back, but he's, you know, he's kind of able to do the Zerg thing, which is just remax. So his army, I think his army quality is not very good, but maybe he can just get enough numbers. Disruptor's going to try and get a great shot, and it will get a good shot, but that is the last Disruptor there. Zealots need to do the trick now, and they are down in the upgrade. +3 attack, not quite down for MaxPax either, but it looks like not enough Marines. No One of Mines either means the Zealots are just not dying, which is always a great little trait here for the Terran, right? I love it when I have so many Marauders, but then Mass Zealots comes in. It's my favorite thing. Not really going to complain about Marauders. They're pretty good. But against Zealots, they do not kill them very fast. 2-2 versus now 3-1. Second Colossus coming up here. The Mass Zealots probably not nearly as effective now. Now we have more army, more EMPs, couple more Marines. And yeah, that is the full extent of Byun's army. He just has not been able to use it all at one place at any time. And it might have been okay too if some of that army that was defending was harassing, going for drops, stopping the 6th base from coming up. That would be totally fine for Byun, but again, it is only defending. And it is stopping his bases from being overrun, but it's not really getting him ahead. As MaxPax, again, pushes back an army, mostly by his harassment. He did push the Marauders back all the way here, but clearly that army fight wasn't going to win out, so then he had to rely on the harassment, and it was going. It was happening, so he could rely on it. So he is still remaxing faster. Again, direct confrontation. I think Byun, with an okay concave, not even the most beautiful one you've ever seen, I think would actually still do very well against this composition, but this is what MaxPax has managed to avoid the entire game, is a direct confrontation. And, you know, next time he pushes in, he's going to be just slicing off units. You know, a couple Marauders there, a couple Marauders here. Byun thinking about getting a back attack set up. Now going to go for more of a surround here. Disruptor shot was amazing, though! Oh, my God! That is so many Marauders! Clearly, Byun, focusing more on the top half of his army, had no idea. Oh boy, MaxPax didn't need that though, because again, there is so much army. This is like, I feel like I am being validated. It is clear that Byun has an army that at any point in time is very scary. MaxPax has to be getting these disruptor shots and has to be taking repeat engagements to actually win against it. But he knows that, and that's exactly what he's doing. No overextension from the Protoss thus far to completely take out their army supply. He's never had to start from ground zero. Byun has finally gotten max again after a few minutes, really. Oh, he's going to take this fight. Oh, yeah, hell yeah, he's going to take this fight. Disruptor is going to go off! Oh, my God. Oh, that was a good disruptor shot again. Byun's supply plummets as soon as I mention he's finally gotten maxed out. Also, a secondary problem, medevac energy. He has been forced to engage over and over and over again. And not only is he getting exhausted, but his medevacs are as well. More Zealots coming on in here. Still an upgrade lead for Byun, but now his army is perpetually injured. MaxPax has taken over the map while this has been going on and taking over natural for Byun too. I mean, he's just all over this. He's reading whatever Byun is doing so well. GG's. MaxPax vs. Clem will once again be the finals of your Monday afternoon.